Last episode, you watched the whole learning loop spin. Guess, measure the loss, nudge the weights, repeat. We kept saying nudge the weights in the right direction. And we waved a hand at which direction that is. This episode, we stop waving. The direction has a name, it's the gradient. By the end, you'll be able to look at any point on a loss surface and read, off the math alone, which way is downhill and how steep it is. No picture required. Start with the thing everyone half remembers from calculus, the derivative. For a function of one variable, the derivative at a point is just the slope of the tangent line there. How fast the output changes when you nudge the input. Here's the misconception worth killing early. People think the derivative is the function or some global property of it. It isn't. It's local. It's the steepness right where you're standing, and it can be different 10 steps to your left. The gradient is just the same idea, grown up for many inputs. Now the leap that trips everyone up. With two inputs, call them x and y, there isn't one slope anymore. The surface tilts differently depending on which way you walk. Walk east, you might climb gently. Walk north, you might climb steeply. So we measure the slope in each direction separately and freeze the other input. That's a partial derivative. The slope you feel moving along one axis while pretending the other is nailed down. Two inputs, two partials. The misconception here is that the partials are the whole story. They aren't, not yet. They're the ingredients. Stack those partials into a vector and you have the gradient. For our surface f of xy equals x squared plus 3y squared, the partial with respect to x is 2x and the partial with respect to y is 6i. So the gradient is the pair 2x, 6e, that's it. No magic. The whole gradient is just collect the per-axis slopes into one arrow. And here's the payoff that's easy to miss. That arrow doesn't just live on the axis. It points in the single direction where the surface climbs fastest, combining both partials at once. Here is the misconception that costs people the most, that the gradient points downhill toward the minimum we're chasing. It does not. The gradient points uphill toward steepest ascent. Every arrow you will see in tonight's figure stabs away from the valley toward higher ground. We want to go down, so in training we step in the opposite direction. That little minus sign, theta minus learning rate times gradient, is doing the most important job in this whole course. The gradient tells you which way is up. You turn around and walk. Read the arrow's length, not just its heading. The magnitude of the gradient, its length, is the steepness. A long arrow means a cliff, a short arrow means a gentle slope. Plug in our toy point 2 by 1. The partials are 2 times 2 and 6 times 1. So the gradient is 4 by 6. And its length is the square root of 16 plus 36, about 7.2. At 1, 2, it's 212 with length over 12, much steeper, because that 3 on the y term makes the surface stiff in the y direction. The numbers tell you the terrain without ever drawing it. And the one point where the arrow vanishes. At the very bottom of the bowl, the origin, both partials are 0. 2 times 0, 6 times 0 gives 0 by 0. No arrow, no length, no direction. That's not a bug, it's the signal. A zero gradient means flat in every direction, and that's exactly what the minimum feels like from the inside. The whole game of training is to keep stepping until the arrow shrinks to nothing. The misconception to retire: a zero gradient doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you've arrived, or sometimes hit a saddle, but that's a later night. Notice something about our bowl that the arrows will scream at you. It's not round. The 3 in front of I squared stretches the surface. It's 3 times stiffer in the y direction than in x, so the arrows don't point straight at the center. They lean toward the steep axis. This is the same lopsidedness that will haunt us for episodes, the ill-conditioned ravine. Tonight, just plant the seed when one direction is stiffer than another. The gradient is honest about it, and the geometry gets hard. Let's compute one ourselves. Open OPO2 gradients.py. it does three things and nothing more: defines the surface and its exact analytic gradient, samples that gradient at three named points so we can check the arithmetic by hand, then builds a 12 by 12 grid of arrows across the surface to render the field you'll see in the figure. No solver, no training loop, just the gradient computed and drawn. First, the surface itself. fxy returns x2 plus 3y2, or anisotropic bowl. We write grad f right beside it, returning the pair x6y, the analytic partials. We're not using autodiff here on purpose. The point of tonight is that you can read these two derivatives off the page by hand, and we want the code to match the math character for character. Next, the sanity check. We evaluate grad f at 3 points, 2 by 1, 1, 2, and the origin, and print each as a vector with its magnitude. This is the part that has to tie out. 2 by 1 gives 4 by 6, 1, 2 gives 2, 12, the origin gives 0 by 0. If these three lines don't print exactly those numbers, every arrow in the figure is suspect. The three checkpoints are our ground truth. Now the field. We lay down a 12 by 12 grid with amplitude space across x in a 3, 3 and y in a 2, 2, mesh grid it, and evaluate the partials everywhere at once. U, 2x, v over 6y, vectorized no loop. U and v are the arrow components, which way each arrow points and how long. One honest detail about drawing fields: raw gradient lengths here span from 0 at the center to over 12 at the corners. So if we drew them true to scale, the corner arrows would swallow the plot and the center would be invisible. So we compute the true magnitude m sqrt and u2 plus v2 for the color and the labels, but draw arrows at a capped visual length. The label says the real number, the drawing stays readable. We log the field maximum, about 12.17 at the corners, so the figure's color scale is anchored to a printed value. Finally, we annotate. The three sample points get a marker and their exact gradient printed next to them, so the viewer can match a drawn arrow to a hand-checkable number. The origin gets a special marker, a small ring with no arrow, to make the vanishing gradient unmissable. Then we hand x, y, u, v and the magnitude m to the figure renderer. So the gradient is the vector of per axis slopes. It points uphill, its length is the steepness, and it goes to 0 exactly at the bottom. We computed it by hand and drew the whole field, but notice we got the partials of a one-line formula by staring at it. Real networks aren't one line, there are 100 composed functions deep, and you can't eyeball those derivatives. Next episode, backprop I, the forward pass, and why every value it computes has to be cached on the way through, so we can walk it backward and get these gradients automatically.